everybody.
Hi.
Welcome. I'm Mrs. Hoover.
And I'm Mrs. Speck.
I'm Mrs. Lehman.
And I'm Mrs. Bushore. This week, for our third week of our packets, we are doing Unit 5, Week 5, The Moon.
We are going to be going over all of the assignments for Week 3, which is March 30th through April 3rd. Please complete the packet labeled Unit 5, Week 5, The Moon. Math workbook pages 678 to 688, and 3-digit subtraction worksheet. And your writing assignment is called My Pet. Make sure you include a topic sentence, 5 to 7 detail sentences, and a closing sentence.
All right, boys and girls, back to putting our detective hats on again. Looking for all the mistakes in these sentences. Mark your corrections on the top and then rewrite the sentences correctly on the lines below the sentences. I'm going to give you a hint. There are some proper nouns in these sentences this week. There are going to be some abbreviations, and there are also going to be some possessive nouns and some contractions. So we have to look for all of those things. Remember, proper nouns start with capital letters. Contractions have an apostrophe to show where we leave the letter or letters out when we put the two words together. And possessive nouns are those kinds of nouns that own or have something. They also would have an apostrophe S or an S apostrophe. 2 pages of these.
Okay, so the phonics pattern this week is dealing with hard and soft sounds of G and C. We're used to the G making the G sound. That's the hard sound. But G can also make the soft sound, and it sounds like a J. J. G makes the soft sound J when it's followed by I, E, and Y. Now let's take a look at C. We're used to the hard sound that C makes, K, like cat. But it also can make the soft sound S when it's followed by I, E, and Y. So those are some tips to help you when you're working with hard and soft G and C. And there's some clues up here too to help you as you work through the worksheets. You're going to choose a word from the box to complete each sentence and write it on the line, and then circle each word that you wrote that has the soft C or soft G sound. When you're reading a word, if it doesn't sound right when you use the hard sound, then flip it and try the soft sound. Okay, now you're going to write each word under the correct heading and then use each word in a sentence about the moon and the stars and write it on the line. So be careful because the 3 words that go here with their sentences are nouns. Which of these 6 words are nouns, meaning they're a person, a place, or a thing? And then just one of those words is a verb. It shows action. And 2 of those words are adjectives. They describe a noun. This page might be a little tricky, so if you're having trouble, don't be afraid to ask someone. Okay, this page deals with compound words. A compound word is a word that's made of 2 smaller words put together to make a bigger word. And the smaller words often can give us clues as to what the bigger word means. So you're going to match each word in the box to its meaning. So let's take a look at the first one, airmail. What 2 words make up the word airmail? Air and mail. Use what you know about air and mail to help you find out what that word means and put it right next to it. Okay, this is another page that's working with hard and soft C and G. You have to circle the word in the box that has the same beginning sound as the 2 words above it and then write it on the line. So let's look at the first one. The 2 words are good and games. There are 2 words in the box. You have to find the one that has the same sound as the G in good and games. Let's look at the choices. Garden and gem. Which one has the G that sounds like good and games? That's what you will do for all 6 of those on that page. Now we have to use the words in the box above to complete the story, so make sure you read all your words first. If some of them are tricky, ask someone for help. Match the definition to the word and then write the letter of the word on the line. So you're going to read the first one. Let's do one together. A hole in the ground that an animal uses. See that little space after it? That's where you're going to write the letter of the word that you think matches it. And at the bottom it says write 2 sentences that tell about the picture and use the words warning and signal. So you need 2 sentences and you're going to use the word warning and signal.
All right, boys and girls, now you're going to be working with contractions. A contraction is a short form of two words put together. An apostrophe takes the place of the letter or letters that are left. Some contractions are formed by putting together pronouns and verbs. So you're going to write the contraction. So if I have I am and we put it together, do you remember what that becomes? It becomes I'm. Don't forget to capitalize that I. We don't hear the A, so that's where the apostrophe would go. And then we need the M for I am becoming I'm. You'll do that for he is and she is. Now you're going to write the two words that form each contraction. So if I have she's, we're going to think about what two words made she's. She is. So you would write she is on the line. Do that for 5 and 6. Again, a contraction is a short form of two words put together. An apostrophe takes the place of the letter or letters that are left. Write the contraction. So you see the two words it is. You need to write the contraction over here, and don't forget that apostrophe. Do that for 2, 3, and 4. Down here, you have the contractions. You need to write the two words that form that contraction.
All right, another one of those pages where we correct the sentences. We're going to be looking especially on this page for contractions, and a contraction is a short form of two words put together. Remember to put that apostrophe in the place of the letters you left out, and an apostrophe takes the place of those letters that are left there. You have 4 sentences. You've got to read the sentences. Each one of those sentences will have a contraction in it. You need to check to see if that contraction is written carefully, correctly, or if it's not written correctly. Make sure you put those apostrophes where they belong. Look at all the sentence, figure out what mistakes are in that sentence, and then rewrite the sentence correctly. After you write the sentence, make sure you look back at the original sentence to see that you fixed all the mistakes that you have found. And then we have one more page, practicing contractions and putting those apostrophes where they belong. Remember again, a contraction is a short form of two words that are put together, and an apostrophe takes the place of the letter or letters that are left out. Possessive pronouns do not have apostrophes. So read the passage carefully. Make sure you correct things like starting the sentences with capital letters, putting correct ending marks on all of the sentences, and looking for correctly written contractions.
Remember, C makes two sounds. Hard C says K, and soft C says S. And G makes a hard and a soft sound as well. G says G, and the soft sound is J. Remember that when you're working with the words on this page. First, we have to look at the spelling words in the box and write the spelling words that have the sound of soft C. That's S. So find the two words that have that soft sound. Now write the spelling words that have the sound of hard C. K. Now write the spelling words that have the sound of soft G. J. And write the spelling words that have the sound of hard G. G. If C makes the same sound in both words, circle yes. If C does not make the same sound in both words, circle no. So cave, face. If it makes the same sound, you're going to say yes. If it does not make the same sound, you will circle no. Now we have to match up. Draw a line from each spelling word to its meaning. So just draw lines to connect. Then write a spelling word on each line to complete the sentence, making sure that it makes sense. Just like we've done before, there are 5 spelling mistakes in this paragraph below. You have to circle the words that are misspelled and then write the words correctly below on the line. The writing at the bottom, we're going to write about the day sky and the night sky, but you have to choose 5 spelling words from this list. And then we have a reading passage that you will want to read with someone. Pay attention to the way the words sound. And there will be vocabulary words and proper nouns. And also pay attention to your speed, your tempo. Then when you're finished, you can answer the questions at the bottom. Again, if you're not familiar with this box, you don't have to worry about it.
All right, boys and girls, we have another word sort. Remember, use the back side of the fluency page that Mrs. Speck just talked to you about to glue your headings. Cow, circle, gate, giraffe, and oddballs. Remember to cut those off first. Glue them on the long edge of the paper. If you can't fit them all over on there, then start about halfway down on the long side and glue the others. Once you have your column headings glued down, cut out the rest of the words. Read the word and then think, does it have a soft or a hard sound at the beginning? If it has a hard C, it gets glued under cow. If it has a soft C, glued under circle. If it has a hard G, glue it under gate. If it has a soft G, glue it under giraffe. If it doesn't have a hard or soft C or G, it goes under the oddball column. And then we have the 5 vocabulary words for this week. Discovered, visible, lunar, spacecraft, surface, and footprint. Remember, we're going to cut out this whole dark gray section as one piece and glue it to the dark gray section on the following page. Then cut apart the vocabulary definitions and match the definition to the word that you already glued on the other page. This week we have 2 poems in your packet. The first one is called The Moon, and it is a Japanese song actually. And the second one is called Indiana, and it is a ballad written by Ballard MacDonald. Read both of these poems a couple of times. You can read them to your mom or your dad, call your grandma or grandpa, or even read them to your dog or cat. Just have fun reading these poems.
All right, boys and girls, we're going to do some writing about my pet. If you could have any animal for a pet, what would it be? Describe the pet and tell how you would take care of it. So you're going to start with that topic sentence, what pet you would choose, and then your 5 to 7 detail sentences are going to be describing the pet and telling how you would take care of it. Don't forget to wrap it up with that ending sentence. When you're all finished, double check to make sure you've started sentences with capitals, left spaces in between words, and make sure you have that end punctuation too. Have fun. Which pet would you choose? Okay, boys and girls, now for your math for week 3, we are looking at bar graphs again. But this week it's different because last week you were learning how to read bar graphs. This week you're going to use that knowledge to help you build bar graphs. So, we have the title of our bar graph, and notice that they've labeled what these numbers mean here, and they've also labeled what these are for. So here we see that these are the number of books read, and these are the children. So we use the information that we read to color each bar. So notice we always start where 0 would be, and then we color up one box or one part of the section of the bar for each number of books that were read. So here Ella is making a bar graph to show the kinds of pets her classmates have. Here's all of the data that you need. It's telling you to write your labels and draw the bar graphs or the bars to complete the graph. So here they're helping us. They're going to call this our pets. Here they're helping us too with this label. This is the number of classmates. And here they're helping us with this label. We can see that dog, cat, bird, and fish are pets, so we label that pet. So they started with dog for you. You can see that 5 classmates have a dog. So they started in the dog column. And we're building a bar here, starting again at 0. And we're coloring 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to match this data over here. You need to continue reading this data to draw and color bars for cat, bird, and fish. Now we have a question here. It says, how will the graph change if one more child gets a bird? So this question is a little trickier because you're not just looking and choosing one of these to find us an answer. You actually have to think about, if we add one more child getting a bird, how would the graph change? Make sure you write that in a complete sentence. Here we go. So Dexter asked his classmates which pizza topping is their favorite. So again, we have our data right here. And we're going to be writing a title and labels for the bar graph. And we're going to draw the bars in the graph to show the data. Notice this time, they don't have a title here. So you get to think, what is this about? And make a title that would be appropriate for what this is about. And over here, think what label would make sense. Peppers, meat, mushrooms, olives. What would make sense to label that? And here we need to add one more label. I see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What do those numbers mean? And write a label that would make sense. Now don't forget, after you get all those labels written, you need to use this data to color your bar graph. Now, the last time our bar graph was going the other way. It was going from bottom up. But notice this time our words are over here, so it's going to go from left to right. So this time your 0 is on the left-hand side, and you're going to be building it, moving to the right, like we read a book. When you're all finished, you are going to answer this question, and then it says, did more classmates choose peppers and olives than meat? Explain. So you're going to have to look at your data for peppers and olives and your data for meat, and you're going to decide, did more classmates choose peppers and olives than meat? So make sure you include that in your answer, and then you're going to explain. Don't forget to start with a capital and end with your punctuation. Okay, same thing on this one. You are going to be responsible for looking at your data and using what you know. Cody asked his classmates which zoo animal is their favorite. So on this one, you need to come up with an appropriate title. Think about what are these numbers for. Come up with a label. Bear, lion, tiger, zebra. What label would make sense here? Use your data to complete the bar graph. Notice this one has your labels down here for bear, lion, tiger, and zebra. So we're going to be starting here at 0 and building up based on this data. Answer your question about this data, and then you're going to look at the bar graph above and suppose that 2 of Cody's classmates chose zebra instead of bear. Explain how the bar graph would change. Make sure when you write about that, you start with capital letters, use proper spacing, and proper end marks. Okay, so here you get to practice it one more time. Maria asked her friends how many hours they practice soccer each week. Here's your data. Don't forget to write a title and labels. Answer your question. Another question, and then look at the bar graph and describe how you shaded bars to show the data. On the back side, you get to read the bar graph and then a little spiral review. Again, using what we know about centimeters and word problems. Don't forget to use that cubes. Use an inch ruler. What is the length of the yarn to the nearest inch? Again, if your class hasn't talked about measurement, you can still take out a ruler if you have that at home and try your best. And we're going to review telling time. What do you remember about quarter past? And a little review with money.
All right, boys and girls, we're going to go to the next step on our bar graphs. You're going to make a bar graph, labeling what the title of the bar graph is, what the numbers stand for, and the words at the bottom, what they stand for. Then you're going to take the information in the orange box and you're going to fill in your bar graph. But what we're going to do with that information this week, after you fill in your bar graph, we're going to look at the data on our bar graph and we're going to think, did the height of the plant change? How did it change from May 1st all the way to May 22nd? Did that bar graph get bigger each week as we went along? If it did, that means that the height increased or got bigger. Or did the height of the plant decrease? and did our bar graph numbers go smaller each week? I like to tell my students, if you can't remember the difference between increase and decrease, remember that decrease starts with a D and so does down. So decrease means goes down. So look at your bar graph and then finish the sentence. The height of the plant, you're going to fill in either increased or decreased. And we're going to do the same thing on the next page. We have our data here in the blue chart. You're going to use that data to make a bar graph. Remember to give it a title, label what the numbers stand for, label what these weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4 stand for, and then color in your bar chart to match the data from the blue box, and then figure out if the amount of practice time increased or decreased from week 1 to week 4. All right, now, question number 3 has to do with that same bar graph that you just made. If Bianca's practice time is 4 hours in week 5, how does her practice time change from week 1 to week 5? Now, our bar graph does not have week 5 on it, but if you want, you can actually write week 5 out here and fill in another space for it there. Or you can just look at it and see that if she had 4 hours on week 5, would it have increased or decreased? Okay, on this page, we have a line plot. Some of you may have done line plots before, some of you may not have. A line plot is kind of like a picture graph where each X stands for one person's vote. So if you want to try and do this line plot, if you've already worked on it in your class, go ahead and answer these 2 questions about the line plot. If you're not comfortable with that, you can skip them. We have another bar graph to do on the bottom. You have the information, the data in the blue box. They already have the labels and titles. You just fill in the bar graph. And then you have to use that bar graph to answer these questions. If there, like for number 1, the first one, there were 2 inches of snow in week 2. Look at your bar graph. If that is true, fill in the bubble next to it. If that is not true, if there were not 2 inches of snow in week 2, then you just leave the bubble blank. Do that with each of those sentences at the bottom of this page. All right, a little bit more practice. Remember, we have to give our bar graph a title and we have to label what those words and numbers stand for. Then use the information in the box at the top to color in your bar graph and use that bar graph to answer the questions below. On question 4, explain how you decided where the bar for March should end. Just think about how you figured out how to do that problem. Then just write down what you did in your brain. All right, one more bar graph on the back. Use that bar graph that's already completely filled in to tell whether the amount of practice time increased or decreased from week 1 to week 4. Spiral review on the bottom, centimeters. This string, it says, is about 10 centimeters long. Well, if this is about 10 centimeters, what would be the best estimate for the length of this feather? And it gives you 3 choices. Think about it. If this is 10 centimeters, about how long would that feather be? And then we have 2 money questions on the bottom. Count up the total value of the coins and write that total value 2 ways, once with a cent sign and once with the word cents. And then the last one is a money problem, but it's also a word problem. So make sure that you are looking at it carefully. It says Rick has 1 $1 bill, 2 dimes, and 3 pennies. How much money does Rick have? You can draw the money here and count on that way and write your total in the bottom.
Okay, in your packet you also have 2 math sheets. I'm not sure which one you're going to do on week 2 and which one you'll do on week 3, but they're both very similar. We're working on subtracting 3-digit numbers, and we already know how to do that, so it's just a good review for us. And there are also 2 problems at the bottom, which we're going to use our cube strategy to help us solve. Okay, so we're going to do a practice problem together so you can kind of get an idea of how to work through those problems. Remember, we always have to start in the ones place, and some of your teachers have told you if the bottom's bigger, you better borrow. And another strategy that the teachers might have told you is if there's more on the floor, then go next door to get 10 more. So let's take a look at that bottom number. It's 3. Is 3 bigger than 2? It is. If the bottom's bigger, you have to borrow. So we're going to go over to 4, and we're going to borrow from 4. He now has 3, and we'll bring that 10 back here. Now, do I have enough that I can subtract? Is the bottom bigger anymore? No, it's not bigger anymore. So 12 minus 3 is 9. Now we're going to go to the tens place. We have to do the same thing in the tens place. We have to say it again. If the bottom's bigger, we better borrow. Is 5 bigger than 3? Yep, it's bigger than 3. So we have to go borrow in the hundreds place. I'm going to cross off my 6. 6 becomes a 5. And I bring that back to the tens place. Now do I have enough to subtract? I do. 13, take away 5, is 8. Now, is the bottom bigger over here? No, 5 is bigger, so I can just subtract. 5 minus 1 is 4. Your answer is 489. Don't forget to check your work. Okay, then we're going to also practice a story problem using the cube strategy, and then you'll be able to use that same strategy to answer all your story problems on the bottom of your math paper. So first I'm going to read the whole problem, then we'll go back and we'll work through our strategy. Mrs. Duncan had 513 stickers. She gave her students 152 stickers. How many stickers does she have left? Okay, with the cube strategy, C means circle important numbers. So let's find the important numbers. I see 513 and I see 152. Those are the important numbers. Now let's do underline keywords. I think there's a keyword in the question. I'm going to read that question again. How many stickers does she have left? What do you think the keyword is? It's left. I'm going to underline it twice. When we see the word left, we know that we have to subtract. So, which number should we put on top? We learned that when we subtract, we have to put the biggest number on top. So let's do 513 subtract 152. I think I forgot one step of the cube strategy. B. What are we supposed to box? Box the question. So let's find that question mark, go back to where that capital letter is. That's how we make sure we get the whole question boxed. Now let's double check and make sure we set up a problem that will help us answer that question. How many stickers does she have left? Left means subtract. So this is the correct problem. And then you guys can work that out and make sure you include a label. What are we talking about? We're talking about stickers. So don't forget your label.
All right, I'm going to read The Moon by Seymour Simon. It goes with your packet for week 3, which is Unit 5, Week 5. The genre of this is expository nonfiction. Expository nonfiction gives information and facts about a topic. The moon is Earth's closest neighbor in space. It is about 1/4 of a million miles away. In space, that is very close. The moon travels around Earth. It is Earth's only natural satellite. A satellite is an object that travels around another object. The moon takes about 27 days and 8 hours to go around the Earth once. The moon is so close to the Earth that you can easily see light and dark on its surface. This photograph of the moon was taken through a telescope on Earth. The light places are mostly mountains and hills. The dark places are flatlands. The moon has thousands of craters covering its surface. Craters are ring-shaped flatlands with walls around them. A few craters on the moon are more than 50 miles wide, but most are smaller. Many of the craters are only a few feet wide. The moon is made of rock. We can see only part of the moon lit by sunlight. Sometimes we see the full moon. Other times we see a thin sliver. Every night the moon looks a little different. Each different shape is called a phase of the moon. The phases go from all dark, new moon, through full moon, and back to new moon in about 29 days. We call the phase in this photograph a crescent moon. From earliest times, people gazed up at the moon and wondered about it. Were there living things on the moon? Would we ever be able to travel to the moon? In 1961, the United States government decided to try to send a person to the moon within 10 years. The space program was named Apollo. This photograph taken from the Apollo 11 Columbia spacecraft shows the lunar landing ship Eagle. It is on its way back from the surface of the moon. The surface of the moon is visible 60 miles below the spacecraft. A partly lit Earth hangs above the moon's horizon. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong became the first person to set foot on the moon. Armstrong was one of the astronauts on the Apollo 11 flight to the moon. He was followed shortly by Edwin Aldrin, another member of the United States Apollo 11 spaceflight. This is a photograph of astronaut Aldrin standing on the moon. The face mask of his spacesuit reflects astronaut Armstrong. This footprint on the moon marks the first time that human beings have walked on ground that was not Earth. The footprint may last for 1,000,000 years or longer. That is because there is no air on the moon, and without air, there can be no winds to blow dust around. The astronauts discovered that the moon is a silent, strange place. The moon has no air. Air carries sound. With no air, the moon is completely silent. Even when the astronauts broke rocks or used the rockets on their spaceship, sound could not be heard. The sky on the moon is always black. On Earth, we can see stars only at night. On the moon, stars shine all the time. The moon does not have air, water, clouds, rain, or snow. It does not have weather. But the surface of the moon does warm up and cool off. The ground gets very hot or very cold because there is no air to spread the heat. The temperatures in the daytime can be above the boiling point of water. At night, the temperature can drop hundreds of degrees below zero. The astronauts' spacesuits kept their bodies at the right temperature. The astronauts carried tanks on their backs that contained the air they needed for breathing. Each Apollo crew brought back more information about the moon. Scientists all over the world studied the information the astronauts brought back. They learned that the moon is about the same age as Earth, but the moon's soil and rocks are different from Earth's. For instance, moon rocks contain no water at all, while almost all rocks on Earth contain a small amount of water. Apollo 17 was the last spaceship to carry people to the moon. It was launched in December 1972. The astronauts of Apollo 17 discovered the oldest rock ever found on the moon. Before the astronauts returned to Earth, they left a plaque on the moon showing the history of moon travel. Earth and its moon are close in space, but very different from each other. Earth is a blue, cloud-covered planet filled with living things. The moon is a dead world. Without air or water, a cloud can never appear in its black sky, and a raindrop will never fall.
All right. Well, boys and girls, that is the end of our week 3 of our 3 blizzard bags that we sent home with you. We hope you have enjoyed watching this with us and that you've kept up with your studies and you also get outside and play a little bit in the fresh air.